Persuasion by Jane Austen for intermediate and upper intermediate levels. Chapter 6. A Surprise. In February, the Crofts came to Bath. When they arrived, Mrs. Croft sent a note to Anne inviting her to visit them. The same day, Anne received a letter from Mary. Dear Anne, I'm sorry not to have written for so long, but now I really must write to tell you some interesting news. Last Tuesday, Louisa came home from night to the great house here at Uppercross. Mr. and Mrs. Harry and Captain Benwick came with her. As soon as they arrived, Captain Benwick asked to speak with Mr. Musgrove in private. What do you think? He asked Mr. Musgrove if he could marry Louisa. Mr. Musgrove agreed, and now they're engaged. What a surprise! We thought that Louisa was going to marry Captain Wentworth. When she read this, Anne's heart beat fast, and she blushed at the thought that Captain Wentworth was now free. She was full of joy. She left the house with the idea of going to visit the Crofts, but on the way she met Admiral Croft. "Oh, Miss Elizabeth, what a pleasure to see you," said the Admiral. "Do you have time to take a little walk with me? I have some good news for you." "Certainly," said Anne. "I'm so glad that you and Mrs. Croft have come to Bath. What is the news?" "It is Miss Louisa Musgrove," he said. "I thought that Sophie's brother Frederick was going to marry her, but now it seems she's going to marry James Benwick." "Really?" said Anne. "I hope that this hasn't caused problems between Captain Wentworth and Captain Benwick. They are such good friends." "I don't think so," said the Admiral. "Frederick wrote and told us all about it. He didn't seem angry or disappointed. Perhaps we were all mistaken in thinking he was in love with her. After her accident, we thought he would stay in Lyme until she was better, but after 2 weeks he went off to stay with his brother in Shropshire. If he was thinking of marrying her, he'll have to start all over again with somebody else. I think we should invite him to stay with us in Bath." In fact, while Anne was taking her walk with Admiral Croft, Captain Wentworth was already on his way to Bath, and the next time Anne went out she saw him. She was walking with Miss Elliot, Elizabeth, and Mrs. Clay, when suddenly she saw Captain Wentworth walking toward them with some of his naming friends and their wives. She felt confused, lost, embarrassed about her own feelings, which were somewhere between delight and misery. Captain Wentworth saw her and immediately went red in the face. He seemed even more confused and agitated by the sight of her than she was by the sight of him. They stopped and spoke to each other like polite acquaintances. Anne noticed that Elizabeth turned away, as if she did not know him. When Anne and her companions were gone, one of the ladies in Captain Wentworth's group said, "It is clear that Mr. Elliot likes his cousin." "Oh, yes," replied another lady. "He's always with them, and he always walks with his cousin Anne. What a good-looking man he is." "And Anne Elliot is very pretty if you look at her closely," said the first lady. "Most people think her sister is pretty, but I don't." Captain Wentworth listened to them in silence. As he walked, he had to recognize Mr. Elliot immediately from the one time he had seen him in Lyme. Days passed, and Anne had no opportunity of seeing Captain Wentworth. He moved in a different social circle. His friends went to concerts and the theatre. Her friends spent their time in the elegant stupidity of private parties. But at last there was an opportunity, a special concert that Lady Humble and promised to attend. Sir Walter, Elizabeth, and Mrs. Clay, Mr. Elliot, Lady Russell, and Anne were all going with her. Sir Walter and his 2 daughters, and Mrs. Clay were the first to arrive at the concert ball. They stood by the fire in the large entrance room, waiting for the others. Captain Wentworth walked in alone. He was simply going to bow and move on, but Anne stepped forward and said, "Hello." He stopped and made polite conversation with her. Sir Walter made a slight bow to Captain Wentworth, and Elizabeth curtsied. Captain Wentworth bowed to them. When they had discussed the weather, bars, and the concert, there was a pause in the conversation. The Captain Wentworth said, "Have you heard Louisa's accident in Lyme did produce one good result? She is engaged to marry to Benwick." "Yes, I heard," said Anne. "I hope they will be very happy," said the Captain. "They have no difficulties at home. Mr. and Mrs. Musgrove are behaving very honourably and kindly. They don't oppose the marriage, even though Louisa could have found a richer man." He stopped speaking suddenly. when he noticed that Anne was blushing and looking at the ground. Then he realized that his words might seem to refer to their own past. "I was surprised by their engagement," he continued, a little nervously. "They are so different. Louisa is a very sweet, friendly girl, and she is not stupid, but Bennet is something more. He is a really intelligent man. He reads a lot and thinks deeply. Fanny Harbour was like him in that way. She was an extraordinary woman, and his love for her was real. A man doesn't get over the loss of a woman like that. I'm surprised that he is able to love someone else, at all, especially so soon after Fanny's death." Anne was breathing very quickly and feeling 100 things at a time, but they were in a public place surrounded by other people. She tried to bring their conversation back to everyday things. "I would like to go to Lyme again," she said. "But you had such terrible experience there. I'm surprised you want to go back." "My memories of Lyme are not all bad," said Anne. Just then, Lady Darnball and the other came in, and Anne had to leave the captain. When they took their seats in the concert hall, Anne looked around, hoping to see him. Miss Elliot sat beside her and began talking to her in a low voice. "I'm so glad I can sit beside you this evening," he said. "On Thursday I'm going to visit some friends in Thornbury, and I won't be back until Friday evening. I'll miss the pleasure of your company." The concert opened with some Italian love song, and the texts were included in the concert program. Miss Elliot asked Anne to translate them for him, and she did so. "You're so clever," he said. "Oh," replied Anne, "not really. My Italian isn't very good." "I'm modest, too modest," said Miss Elliot. "You've only known me a few weeks," said Anne. "You don't know my character well, Anne." "Perhaps I know more about you than you think," he replied. "I heard about your character long before I came to Bath." "Really?" said Anne, in great surprise. "Who spoke about me to you?" "I'll tell you some other time, not now," said Miss Elliot. "For now, all I say is that the name Anne Elliot has for many years been an interesting one for me. I hope that name will never change." Anne looked away from him in embarrassment. She did not want to talk to him any more. She wished he wasn't sitting next to her. Just then she heard Lady Darnball say to her father, "A very fine young man. Who is he?" "Captain Wentworth," Sir Walter replied. "I know him only slightly." Anne looked in the direction in which they were looking and saw him. He was looking at her. Just as her eyes met his, he looked away. "Miss Elliot," said Lady Darnball during the interval, "come and sit beside me. I want to ask you something." To Anne's relief, Miss Elliot moved away. The seat beside her was now empty, and after a few minutes Captain Wentworth came over to talk to her. He looked unhappy. Something must have happened since they had spoken in the interest room. Anne thought that perhaps Lady Russell or her father had glanced at him in an unpleasant way. "Do you like the concert?" she asked. "No, the music isn't very good," he replied. "I think I'll leave now." "The next song is beautiful. It's worth waiting for," said Anne. "No," he said in a voice of full emotion. "There's no reason for me to stay." And he laughed. "He's jealous of Miss Elliot," thought Anne. For a moment this thought gave her great pleasure, but then she felt helpless and depressed. How could she tell him the truth? How could she let him know that she did not care for Miss Elliot at all?